Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Hey everyone, we are live again with Mondays with Marc and Mike. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing excellent. I'm doing excellent. We are going to try to have this first segment, this first 30-minute segment on my channel, be a pretty fast question and answer segment. We want to get through as many questions as possible. Then after 30 minutes, we're going to throw it to part 2 on Marc's channel. And, well, we're going to take our time a little bit over there. In other words, I think that's a bit of an open-ended event. We'll go as long as it needs to go. Does that sound about right, Marc?
Yeah, until, well, basically, if Mike might need to bail out early, but we'll stay.
Yeah,
as long
okay,
as we
cool.
can.
So, guys, I'm going to throw it. First softball question here. Mike, in the civil case against David Miscavige and a bunch of Scientology organizations,
Yep.
it looks like we're waiting on the judge to rule whether Miscavige can be considered officially served in this case. If the judge makes that ruling, what can we expect to happen next?
An appeal, probably of that order first, which won't go anywhere. No appellate court is even going to consider that. I'm not even sure if it is appealable, frankly. They'll probably find a way to petition for it to be appealed, but that won't go anywhere. He will then start the process of filing motions to dismiss the complaint for lack of subject matter jurisdiction, for lack of venue, for improper venue, for lack of stating a cause of action. I mean, everything that you can think of under the sun to avoid having to actually engage in the lawsuit. Being served is one thing. The lawsuit really gets underway when discovery is undertaken, and there are a lot of things that happen, and Scientology has a very good sort of system of filing motions to dismiss a case before it gets to discovery. And you know, there's summary judgment motions, there's motions to dismiss, there's motions to recuse the judge. I mean, anything you can think of. He will also, no doubt, if and when he is deemed served, join in the other party's claim that everything must be handled through Scientology ComEv. What they are calling arbitration, but what isn't really arbitration, a Scientology ComEv on the interested parties to determine their guilt or innocence.
Right. So if Miscavige starts filing all sorts of appeals as high up as he's allowed to, I mean, can you appeal something like an issue of service all the way to the Supreme Court? I mean, could he?
Unlikely. I mean, that sort of thing, you know, judges are given a lot of latitude by appellate courts. They don't want every single thing coming to them, so they tend to go, listen, this isn't an issue for an appeals court. This is an issue, this is a matter for the judge to make a determination on, and we're not even gonna entertain the thought of reviewing this order. That's most likely what will happen if they seek to appeal it. I think this one may even be beyond the reality of any lawyer, even representing David Miscavige, to bring himself to file something that they know is so unlikely to succeed that it's going to make them look bad. But it's happened before, and you know, he will treat this matter of whether he has been served in a fashion that is not handing him papers as a very serious precedent-setting thing, because he knows that it's going to be used against him in future litigation. So there will be a lot of time and money put into figuring out everything that can possibly be done to short-circuit that if the judge decides that he has been served. And at this point, I don't think that there is any doubt that the judge is going to make that order.
Interesting. If DM were deposed under oath, would he have to admit he was mayor of Munchkin Land in a past life? Well, obviously. Obviously. Let's
Gosh, that's a real question. Did you make that one up, Aaron?
No, it's right on the
real
screen
question.
there.
It's right there. It's right there.
That's amazing.
I saw one. I saw another question. Sorry, guys. I saw a question that wasn't a super chat, but I wanted to throw it up. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's check this one out. Will Miscavige remarry, or will he keep having a pretend marriage with Shelley, who he has disappeared? What are your thoughts on this one?
I don't
Stay
think
married to Shelley, just like L. Ron Hubbard stayed married to Mary Sue until the very bitter end.
Yep. I agree.
But like, what if Shelley were like, screw this, I'm the one who wants a divorce? That could possibly happen, right?
That could. That's a remote possibility.
Boy, wouldn't that be embarrassing? Did L. Ron Hubbard ever actually divorce Mary Sue for the last period? They never divorced. Wow.
No, she was just sent to purgatory, like Shelley.
Right.
She was a persona non grata.
Where did Headley go? All right, he'll be back. Okay, good. Let me find another one here. Okay. Since this case has to be adjudicated in person and will be a public record, will other process servers be able to intercept him at the court? Oh, Mike, I mentioned that this isn't the only civil case that Miscavige has been trying to evade service. And like one of them is the civil case from Masterson's victims.
Right.
Are they allowed to... Okay, let's bring Mark back on. Hello, Mark.
Howdy.
Did you have a good
trip?
I did.
Okay.
Can process servers just stake out a courthouse? Like, actually, let me take one step back. Even if Miscavige becomes a party to this case, do you anticipate him ever having to show up in person in court other than just being deposed in some, conference room somewhere?
No.
Okay. But if he were to have to show up in court in person, could a process server serve him in another suit when he showed up to the courthouse?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But, that's one of the things that his lawyers will do once he gets served, that they will ask for a protective order from the court that protects him from all of the dangerous people out there that are threats to his existence, and he will make it into a big deal. People have been murdered, these threats have happened, like all the stuff that they say on Stanley, they will drag all of that stuff out and say that Mr. Miscavige is a very important person, and he is being threatened constantly as the leader of the Scientology religion, because there are hate mongers and bigots out there who are stirring up hatred, and that he fears for his life and his well-being. And so there must be an order issued by the court that if he has to go into deposition, it shall be in a secret location, that the nobody shall be informed of where this is other than the lawyers for the parties, and blah, 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 and that there must be security there, and blah, 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 blah. So there's always a lot more bullshit that goes on with these things than you imagine there will be. And you can be absolutely certain there'll be a lot of bullshit that circulates around the involvement of Miscavige in this or any other case.
Right.
Yeah. In our case, Aaron,
Yeah.
when we were being deposed, when Claire and I were being deposed,
Yeah.
it was being live streamed to Miscavige as we were talking, and he was texting the lawyers, like all the OSA guys, on their Blackberries. And if we were going down a path that he didn't want us to go down, like I would start explaining about how people were getting beat up by him and all that good stuff, the Blackberries would be on fire, and they'd be passing notes to the lawyer: stop, stop, stop.
Yeah, I had the same thing when I was deposed. He was watching it live, and the row of lawyers down the table were passing one another notes with Ben Shaw and Alan Cartwright and whoever else was there, like furiously scribbling as they're watching their screens, and like notes being passed, and like fluster, and like lots of extra drama going on in this deposition.
We could tell when things were really getting excited because the Blackberries would be going off full time. Then they'd pass notes to the lawyers, and then the attorneys would be like, "We're going to take a break." And then you could hear him going off in the conference room, and Miscavige yelling at him over the speakerphone.
Wow. So he can interrupt your deposition because he doesn't like what you're saying.
Well,
they're
he
the ones
can't
conducting
literally. He can't literally interrupt it, Aaron. He has to tell the lawyers, who are the only ones that are allowed to speak, and have them interrupt effectively, or say, try and shut you down if you're trying to make a point. I remember they asked me, is it true, Mr. Rinder, that you said that David Miscavige was like Hitler? And my response to that was, no, L. Ron Hubbard said that. And then I started on a roll about what the policy says, describing who a suppressive person is, the antisocial personality, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no, we don't need to hear that. Well, you asked me the question. I have a right to answer it. Well, no, you've already answered the question. So you did say, no, I didn't say it. L. Ron, it gets into these silly games. And if you are sort of experienced and know how to conduct yourself in such a deposition, it can become quite fun. It can become pretty amusing as these lawyers try and figure out how to stop you from saying what you want to say, because they always tell you, that's not what I asked you, you don't have a right to respond, you just can say yes or no. And if you don't understand how this works, you can believe them. And if you believe them, they control you, and they get you saying things that you don't want to be saying, or admitting to things because you're required to give a yes or no answer. But actually, they can't shut you up. They can't do anything about it. If you want to talk, you're just going to talk, and they can sit there and fume and jump up and down and tell your lawyer to get your client under control, and but it doesn't really mean anything. They don't actually have any authority. Their authority is that they are allowed to ask you questions. They are not allowed to actually prevent you from answering the questions, although they try and convince you that they are.
Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, here's one. Let's see if we can do this justice in a short amount of time. How did Miscavige flip Bob Minton? I read your book, but it wasn't explained in detail. I thought it was explained in some detail.
It was explained in a lot more detail than a lot of things are explained in the book. I sort of used Bob Minton as the example of one of the sort of successful fair game campaigns. I mean, he was under intense investigation by private investigators who were following him around and visiting his family members, et cetera, but the big thing was that he had accumulated his money in Swiss bank accounts, and a lot of it had come from trading in Nigerian bonds. And Dave LeBeau, the private investigator, was sent to get Bob Minton's money frozen. That was his target. And he went and found this soccer player, John Fashanu, who played for Arsenal in the English Premier League and was a Nigerian, and somehow managed to find a line to this guy and persuade him that there were people who were ripping off his country. And because he was such a famous person in England, he was able to get an audience with someone at the Nigerian High Commission, and persuade them that something needed to be done about this. And they contacted a prosecutor in Switzerland through the Nigerian embassy in Switzerland and got Bob Minton's accounts frozen. Now,
Unbelievable.
that had a big impact on his ability to do anything. And by that time, he had a bunch of people who were like sort of treating him like the free lunch. And as his money no longer was available, him paying for their, you know, whatever it was that he was paying for at the time, there was a bunch of people down there at the Lisa McPherson Trust. They started getting pissed off at him, and it created like an environment where he was almost as upset with the people who were on his side of that equation by that point as he was with Scientology. But they didn't offer any solution to the problem. Only Scientology did, and only I could be the one that could say to him, listen, if we sort this out, I'm sure we can sort out the problems that you're having in Switzerland. So
Amazing.
that's how it happened.
It's such a perfect example of how Scientology, even though there's not a whole lot of geniuses running their show over there, can figure out how to find a way, finagle a way, that, you know, exploit something here, exploit something there to move some pretty big mountains.
Right. And I doubt that John Fashanu even understood that he was doing anything on behalf of Scientology. I mean, that's how these operations are supposed to be done. They are supposed to be done so that there is no link back to Scientology, because that would be sort of self-defeating. And you know, this is what I testified to in the Paul Haggis case, that look, there may be no visible link between Scientology and the accuser in this case, but I wouldn't expect there would be one. You don't do it that way. You find a cutout, and you go and you find what it is that is attractive or influences or encourages someone to take action that is helpful to you and your cause without them even knowing that that's the case. So, right. You know, that's a classic example. And there was a whole bunch of them. I mean, this is, or that was total fair game. That is fair game in its essence. And it is the same sort of thing as was done to Gabe Cazares. It's the same sort of thing that was done to Paulette Cooper. You know, Paulette Cooper was being prosecuted by federal prosecutors for her bomb threat against Scientology and her threats against Henry Kissinger. And she would have been convicted and gone to prison had it not been for the FBI raid and the documents coming out that showed this was all a setup.
Right. Incredible. Truly incredible. Yeah. Talk about violations of public policy.
Yes.
Okay, does Miscavige treat his loyalists well? If not, how does he retain power? Surely he couldn't maintain a reign if he treated everyone like garbage. Even Stalin had his friends.
I'll let Marc talk for a bit.
Yeah, I don't think... I mean, the people close to him are treated a little bit better sometimes, but they're also treated way worse than everybody else most of the time. So I would remember how Tom DeVock would he go play chess or have a drink with them up in the officers' lounge, Mike?
Yeah, I used to do that too. Play chess or pinochle, whatever it was that was Dave's thing of the moment. That's what we would all be required to do,
Yeah, so I remember there was a few people like Mike, Tom DeVock, Marty, a few people like that would kind of, you find out, oh, Marty's going up to meet with Dave in the officers' lounge. And then they'd be up there for 3 or 4 hours. And then it was like, we wouldn't get a debrief on that. But if he went to go up to building, like if Mike or somebody had to go up to building 50 to meet with COB, usually he'd come back down and we'd get a briefing. Okay, he wants this, he wants that. We got to do this, we got to do that. And when they'd go up to the officers' lounge, there was no debrief. So you're like, oh, they're doing something else besides talking shop up there. And that was just kind of us peons knew.
But the answer to the question is no, he doesn't treat anybody. There is a wonderful line in the Vow season 2 that really struck me. One of these women who was devoted to Keith Raniere forever said, you know, I loved him and I still loved him and I thought he loved me. But I came to realize the only person Keith Raniere loves is himself. And this sort of epitomizes in my mind what a sociopath is. And when it's convenient for Miscavige, he can pretend that he really likes you, that you're his bud, but that can change in like 10 seconds, literally. I mean, you could be sitting there playing pinochle with him, drinking, sipping scotch, and 5 minutes later, you could be being thrown in the lake, even from that circumstance. And it's very, very random. And, you know, that question references even Stalin had his friends. Well, one of the famous things that Stalin did was kept everybody off balance. I mean, he would literally shoot random people just so everybody was in fear. And that is a way that you keep cabals from forming to overthrow, you know, the dictatorship. And that's what Miscavige is really, really good at. He is an artist at keeping everybody uncertain about whether they're going to be good or bad with, you know, 10 seconds from now or tomorrow or next week. So you're always walking on eggshells about whether I'm going to be being commended and everybody is going to be told what a wonderful guy I am and why are all you schmucks not as good as this guy, or conversely, this guy's a fucking SP and all of you other schmucks are putting up with him and you should be beating the shit out of him. Which is it going to be today? Who knows? I mean, there's many, many times that I have been asked, so what did you do that caused this to happen? You know, what did you do that caused you to be put in the hole? Or what did you do that caused... I'm like, I don't know. I looked the wrong way. I didn't answer quickly enough. I answered with the wrong answer. I answered with the right answer, but the wrong facial expression. I picked my nose. I farted. I have no clue. I just couldn't tell you.
I remember the best example of that was whenever Dave would come down to where the hole ended up being, and in the WDC, the Watchdog Committee conference room, and he would always sit at one end and everybody else would sit at the other end, and then the RTC guys would kind of stand around him. And one of the times he came there to rip us a new one, and some of the RTC guys were standing with him, he was like, no, you guys go on that side. and Marty was in that group. And when he put Marty on the receiving end of the beatings, I think it was like a week later, Marty was out of there. Because Marty was like an enforcer for the most part. And as soon as he went on the recipient side, he was like, no, I'm not playing that.
Reminds me of the mob boss slowly walking around the huge conference table with a bat, and no one knows who he's going to hit.
Untouchables.
That's exactly right. That is the model.
Yeah. Okay, here's one. Are the lawyers equally Scientologists?
No.
Just Ken Moxon, right?
Only Rick Moxon.
Oh, Rick Moxon.
Helena Coburn. There's a couple of others. Michael Stoller used to be around. Laurie Bartleson was one for a while, but she was so incompetent as a lawyer, she couldn't even make it in the in-house legal unit. But she's now one of the Stand League people.
Please say Blinky McBlinky face. Well, it's Blinky McBlink face. So, and that's Monique. Monique Blinky McBlink face. All right, we got a few more minutes. I want to get through the super chats here. How likely is it that DM loses his tax-exempt status? How do we as a community help revoke Scientology's tax-exempt status? What's the elevator pitch on this one?
How likely is it?
Well, sure. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, ultimately, I think it's inevitable. But how long that takes is what the question really is. And what can be done to help? The two things that will cause the IRS to act on Scientology's exempt status is media, big media, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, level media, kicking up a stink, and congressmen. And particularly congressmen on the House Ways and Means Committee, congressmen who have some seniority, or senators on the Senate equivalent of the House Ways and Means Committee, or whatever oversight bodies there are. When it becomes politically expedient to start demanding that Scientology's exemption be reviewed by the IRS will ultimately act, and it will become politically expedient when people start seeing this as an issue which will gain them political currency rather than detract from it, like Rick Caruso did. That LA mayoral race was the first sign that there has been that Scientology is becoming a political issue that will get people votes by being opposed to Scientology. And once that happens, Katie bar the doors, or whatever the expression is. I don't even know what the expression is. Is that what it is?
Katie bar the doors. I haven't heard that one, but I'm going to use it. If LRH is reincarnated and comes back and his vessel started making huge moves in the world, what would you three do? Well, I've always said that if L. Ron Hubbard did actually come back and prove to everybody that Scientology does allow you to willfully reincarnate, I'd go back.
But what's his vessel? Is
His
that
body.
maybe his body?
Yeah.
Started making huge moves in the world? What would you three do? I don't know. I'd probably I would probably go, yeah, I'm not so sure about this. I think
that's
this is
another what if. What if the sun fell on our asses? We'd all burn up. Yeah.
I think this is another one of those what's his name guys, the con man that was L. Ron
Grant
Hubbard
Cardone?
too. No, the guy with that tattoo.
Got the tattoo.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean.
He's in prison now, I think.
Yeah,
he is. Is there, and not even Grant Cardone, that's okay. Is there anyone other than us lay people sending info to Congress or the correct law enforcement agency about the horrific abuses at Scientology? What do you guys think this question means?
Is there anybody else sending this stuff?
Other than us at the Aftermath Foundation?
And I guess regular people that support us.
I'm going to take this question. I mean, is there anything happening behind the scenes that Scientology wishes were not happening? And I'm just going to say yes. How about that?
Excellent answer.
Yes. And hurry up because I got to bail in about 1 minute.
Well, no, it's okay. Your event doesn't start until you start it, but we're going to, okay. We know Priscilla and Lisa Marie were in. What about Elvis? No, Elvis was never in Scientology. He hated them.
Yeah.
Right?
He said they just wanted, he went in, did he go to New York org, right, Mike?
I don't remember, Mark. I think that's the story.
I think he went into New York org. He was in there for a few minutes and he came out and he told that the captain or whatever that guy's, his manager
Colonel,
dude.
The colonel.
He told the colonel, they just want my money and screw those people.
And he was right. And they ended up getting it through Priscilla and Lisa Marie, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, in 1999, the UK's Charity Commission stated that Scientology was not established for charitable purposes. They could not be registered as a charity. Mike, what happened internally as a result?
Nothing. Because David Miscavige was the one that was involved in that directly with Tom Cruise. I write about it in the book. I went to London with them to visit with the Charity Commission after a meeting being set up with a couple of aides for the Prime Minister. What was that young guy's name who was the Prime Minister? Anyway, Tom Cruise had arranged this meeting and it all came to nothing. So
Okay, good. And then the last question here, and then we're going to all join Mark Headley over on his channel for part 2. Is Tom Cruise completely brainwashed and truly believes, or is he aware of the fact that it's a farce and is just going along with it? Well, I have my opinion, but what say you, Mike?
I think he's a believer.
Yeah. I think without question, he is a true believer. And even, you know, the promos that he's doing right now for all of the fantastic stunts. I saw like a 10-minute promo video that Tom did behind the scenes for all the stunts on Mission Impossible. And even the rhetoric of the drilling and the perfection, everything he says to me resonates. Scientology propaganda, Scientology propaganda, Scientology propaganda. All right, everybody, I'm going to end this broadcast. It's going to automatically redirect you to Headley's channel for part 2. We'll see you over there. Bye.